A little girl, about 6 years old, sat on the cold ground of an empty park, clutching a stale piece of bread she shared with the pigeons. Her eyes, big, brown and filled with fear, watched everything with the alertness of someone who already knew the world wasn't safe. As the millionaire hurried past, she mustered all the courage she had, tugged on his pant leg and pleaded, "Help me, mister, he hits me and leaves me hungry." The man froze. Everyone else in the park pretended not to hear, except him. Subscribe to the channel for heartwarming stories every day. The millionaire strode purposefully through downtown, his gaze fixed on the horizon, ignoring the people around him. His impeccably tailored Italian suit and polished shoes reflected the morning sun. On the phone, he was discussing astronomical figures with a calculated coldness that had taken him to the top of the corporate world. "I don't care what they think. Close the deal today or find another job tomorrow," he ordered, ending the call without waiting for a response. A few feet away, huddled under the partial shade of a tree in the park, the little girl watched the passers-by with weary eyes. Her clothes, several sizes too big for her fragile body, were stained and torn in places. Disheveled hair framed a face that, despite her young age, already carried the weight of distrust. She broke off a tiny piece of the hardened bread she was holding and placed it on the ground. Immediately, 3 pigeons approached, pecking eagerly. A small smile flickered across her chapped lips as she watched the birds. The millionaire, still absorbed in his thoughts about mergers and acquisitions, was about to walk straight past when he felt a tug on his pant leg. His first reaction was irritation, but when he looked down, he met those enormous brown eyes pleading for help. "Help me, mister. He hits me and leaves me hungry," the girl said, her voice choked with suppressed tears. The man froze. That childish voice, filled with genuine despair, cut through years of cultivated indifference. For an instant he saw beyond the dirty, ragged child. He saw pure vulnerability, without any artifice or manipulation. The people around him quickened their pace, pretending not to see, as if misery were contagious. He knelt down, bringing himself to the girl's eye level. He noticed the purplish marks on her thin arms, scars that shouldn't be there. Something in that look, perhaps the fear, perhaps the dignity that still existed despite everything, reminded him of his own childhood when his father would disappear for days and his mother would cry in secret. "Where do you live?" he asked, his voice softer than he intended. "With my daddy when he comes back, in a small room far from here," the girl replied, pointing vaguely towards the other side of the city. "He gets mad when he drinks. Real mad." The millionaire felt a pang in his chest. He recognized in her words a distant echo of his own past, a past he had buried under layers and layers of financial success and calculated indifference. At that moment, his phone rang again. On the screen, the name of his CFO flashed, reminding him of the crucial meeting that was due to start in 20 minutes. 20 minutes that could mean millions. He looked at the phone, then at the girl. Their worlds, so drastically different, collided at that instant. "What's your name?" he asked, turning off the phone without answering. The girl hesitated, as if even her name was a dangerous secret to share. "Everyone just calls me Little One." The millionaire extended his hand, a gesture that surprised even himself. "Little One, are you hungry?" She nodded, her eyes suddenly shining with a hope so fragile it hurt to watch. The man made a choice at that moment. For the first time in years, he didn't think about stocks, profits, or strategies. He thought only of a hot meal for a hungry child. The restaurant was too fancy for the girl, who shrank into the leather chair, looking around with wide eyes. Her feet, clad in worn and dirty sneakers, barely touched the ground. The millionaire watched, with a mixture of fascination and discomfort, as she picked up the cloth napkin with reverence, as if it were something too precious to use. "You can order anything you want," he said, offering the menu. The girl stared at the symbols on the paper, confused. Her dirty fingers left marks on the gilded edges. "I can't really read," she confessed in a whisper, as if admitting a crime. "Daddy says school is a waste of time." The millionaire felt a lump in his throat. He, who funded entire universities as a tax strategy, was facing a child without access to basic education. "Do you like spaghetti?" he asked, trying to sound casual. When the waiter brought the dishes, the girl looked at the food as if it were a work of art. Her hand trembled as she held the fork. She took a small bite, chewing slowly, as if she wanted to make the experience last forever. "You can eat faster. No one's going to take your plate away," the millionaire said, noticing the fear in her eyes. Across the street, visible through the restaurant's panoramic window, the empty park seemed like another world. The man thought about how many times he had walked through there, talking about millions on the phone without really seeing. His cell phone vibrated again. It was his assistant, frantic. "Sir, the investors have been waiting for 40 minutes. I've never seen the board so angry." "Cancel everything," he replied, watching the girl who was now eating with more confidence. "I have an urgent matter to attend to." He hung up before he could hear the protests. Something in the fragility of that child awakened a protectiveness he didn't know he still possessed. It wasn't just compassion, it was a deep recognition. As if in that girl, he saw reflections of buried pains. When she finished eating, she wiped her mouth with the napkin, folding it carefully afterwards, as if trying not to leave evidence of her presence. "Thank you, mister. Now I need to go back before Daddy gets home." "Wait," said the millionaire, gently holding her wrist. "Those marks on your arms, did your father do that?" The girl lowered her eyes, confirming silently. "He's not bad. He just gets sad and drinks. Then he forgets he hits me." The millionaire recognized the excuses. He himself had made them, decades ago, to teachers who asked about his bruises. "Do you know your mother?" he asked, trying to gather information. The little girl shook her head. "Daddy says she left when I was born, that she didn't want me." The millionaire took a deep breath. Something about that story sounded too familiar. "What's your father's name?" When the girl answered, the millionaire's blood ran cold. He knew that name. It was a former employee fired years ago for embezzling funds from the company, a man who had sworn revenge before disappearing. "Would you mind seeing my place?" The millionaire asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "I have ice cream in the freezer." The mention of ice cream lit up the child's face with a smile that for a moment erased all the fear and pain in her eyes. "Ice cream? For real?" He nodded, feeling a strange emotion as he saw that simple and genuine joy. What was he doing? He who went months without visiting his own family was taking a stranger to his home. But she wasn't just any stranger. She was the daughter of a man he had destroyed professionally, a child paying for the conflict between adults. As they left the restaurant, the millionaire offered his hand to the girl. She hesitated for a moment, then took it with her dirty little fingers. Together, they crossed the park, walking towards a future that neither of them could foresee. The millionaire's penthouse occupied the top 2 floors of an imposing building in the financial district. When the doors of the private elevator opened directly into the living room, the girl caught her breath. The space, with its double-height ceiling and floor-to-ceiling windows, seemed to belong to another planet, a place where pain and hunger didn't exist. "Do you live here all by yourself?" she asked, still standing in the entryway, as if afraid to dirty the marble floor with her muddy sneakers. "Yes," the millionaire replied, suddenly realizing the emptiness of the space he called home. "Just me and some people who come to clean and cook." The girl walked carefully, barely touching the furniture, as if afraid of breaking something and being punished. Her eyes absorbed every detail, the paintings on the walls, the grand piano that no one played, the panoramic view of the city. "Are you the richest man in the world?" she asked, with the typical innocence of childhood. The millionaire smiled, a rare smile that didn't reach his eyes. "No, little one, there are people with a lot more money than me." He led her to the stainless steel kitchen, clinically clean and rarely used. He opened the freezer and took out a pint of chocolate ice cream. "Do you like chocolate?" The girl nodded fervently, her eyes shining. When he placed the bowl in front of her, she didn't attack it immediately as he expected. Instead, she stared at the dessert with an almost religious reverence. "You can eat it," he encouraged. She took the spoon carefully and tasted a tiny portion. Her face lit up with a joy so pure that for a moment, the millionaire forgot the problems that the situation could bring. "So good," she murmured, savoring, each spoonful as if it were the last. "Thank you, mister." The man sat down opposite her, watching her. What the hell was he doing? He had missed a crucial meeting, brought a strange child home. And now what? Should he call the authorities? Return her to the abusive father? The idea caused him physical discomfort. "You know what?" he said, trying to buy time. "I think you need a bath. Then we can watch a movie while I decide what to do." The girl stopped eating, the fear returning to her eyes. "Are you going to give me back to my daddy?" The millionaire hesitated. "Do you want to go back?" She lowered her eyes, stirring the almost empty bowl. "No, but I'm afraid he'll be even madder." He said, "If I tell anyone, bad things will happen." The millionaire felt a cold rage forming in his chest. He knew that kind of threat well. Fear as a tool of control. "No one will hurt you here," he assured her with more firmness than he felt. "You're safe with me." But would she really be? He could barely take care of himself. His last relationship had ended because, according to his ex-fiancée, he was emotionally unavailable. His relatives only contacted him when they needed money. What kind of protection could he offer a traumatized child? While the girl took a bath, helped by the housekeeper he had hastily called, the millionaire stared at the phone. Should he call social services, the police, lawyers? His mind, accustomed to making quick decisions involving millions, froze in, the face of that human, unpredictable and complicated situation. When the girl came back, she was wearing one of his t-shirts that looked like a dress on her small body. The wet and combed hair revealed a different face, still thin, still marked by the hard life, but with a childlike beauty that had previously been hidden under the dirt. Without the ragged clothes, the marks on her arms and legs were even more evident, purple and yellowish bands in different stages of healing. "Did it hurt to take a bath?" he asked, noticing how carefully she moved. "Just a little," she replied, with a shy smile. "The hot water feels good." That simple phrase, gratitude for something as basic as hot water, completely disarmed the millionaire. It was an absurd contrast to his own world, where he complained about the champagne not being at the ideal temperature, or the room service taking 5 minutes longer. "Do you like cartoons?" he asked, turning on the huge television in the living room. She nodded, hesitant as if she wasn't sure of the correct answer. "I don't know. I've never seen many." The millionaire swallowed hard. As he searched for something suitable to watch, his mind worked in circles. He had built walls around himself for years, protecting himself from anything that could make him feel. And now, a strange child had found a breach, exposing his forgotten vulnerability. "I think I've seen this one," said the girl, pointing to the screen where an animated movie was starting. "On a boy's phone in the park?" The millionaire sat on the sofa, maintaining a respectful distance. He had never been good with children. He didn't know what to say or how to act. But when she, now more comfortable, approached timidly, he didn't back away. "Mister, can I stay here just until tomorrow? I promise I won't be any trouble." The most powerful man on that side of the city, accustomed to negotiating billion-dollar contracts without blinking, felt completely disarmed in the face of that simple and desperate request. "We can talk about it tomorrow," he replied, knowing he was just postponing the inevitable. For now, he would let her have a few hours of peace, a few hours to just be a child. The millionaire woke up startled, disoriented for a moment. He had fallen asleep on the sofa, something he hadn't done in decades. The morning light streamed in through the immense windows, illuminating the small figure curled up at the other end of the furniture. The girl was sleeping soundly, clutching a silk pillow that probably cost more than 6 months' rent in the part of town where she lived. He watched her face relaxed in sleep. Without the constant fear, her features seemed different, softer, more childlike, as it should be for a child her age. His phone vibrated silently on the coffee table. The screen showed dozens of missed calls, urgent messages, emails marked as high priority. The world kept spinning, indifferent to the small human drama unfolding. In that penthouse, "She looks like someone," he murmured to himself, studying the sleeping face. The housekeeper entered the room silently, stopping when she saw the scene. "Sir, breakfast is ready, and there are some people wanting to talk to you. It seems important." The millionaire signaled her to speak more quietly. "Who?" "Your personal lawyer and the head of security. They said it's about the visit." She glanced at the sleeping girl. The man sighed. Of course, his team already knew. Nothing escaped the network of protection he paid fortunes to maintain. "Tell them to wait in the office and prepare something that children like to eat for breakfast." The housekeeper seemed momentarily confused by the unusual request, but nodded and left. Careful not to wake the girl, the millionaire went to the office. His 2 trusted men were waiting for him, tense faces and briefcases in their hands. You found information about the child," the head of security said without preamble, "and about the father." The lawyer, a middle-aged man with tired eyes who had seen it all, opened a file on the desk. "It's not a simple situation, sir. The man worked at your company 8 years ago. He was fired for cause after an internal investigation proved embezzlement. He contested the dismissal in court. He lost. After that, there are records of alcoholism, some incidents with the police, nothing serious enough for prolonged imprisonment." The millionaire leafed through the documents, feeling a growing weight in his stomach. "And the mother?" The 2 men exchanged glances. "Passed away 4 years ago. Car accident." The information landed like a bomb. Had the girl lied, or had the father lied to her? "There's more," continued the lawyer, handing over another document. "According to our contacts in social services, there have been 3 reports from neighbors for suspected child abuse in the last 2 years. All were dismissed for lack of concrete evidence." The millionaire felt the anger rise. The system he had helped fund with his taxes had failed to protect a defenseless child a few miles from his luxurious penthouse. So now what? What happens if I just keep her here? The lawyer adjusted his glasses, clearly uncomfortable. "Technically, that would be considered kidnapping, sir. The father has legal custody. The correct thing would be to contact Child Protective Services, which would initiate an investigation. But considering your history with her father, it could look like revenge," completed the millionaire, understanding the implication. "Exactly. And the man has knowledge of sensitive information about some old company operations. Information that, while not illegal, could cause embarrassment if exposed in the media." The millionaire felt a wave of nausea. There he was, reducing the pain of a child to a matter of public relations and crisis management. "I need options," he said finally. The 2 men exchanged glances again. "We can mediate a financial compensation," suggested the lawyer, choosing his words carefully. "The father is unemployed, in a precarious situation. A generous offer in exchange for temporary custody might be acceptable to him. The millionaire felt disgusted at the idea of treating the girl like a commodity, but before he could answer, a small voice came from the office door. "Mister?" The girl was standing in the doorway, her hair tousled from sleep, her bare feet on the expensive carpet. Her eyes went from the millionaire to the two unknown men, the fear immediately returning to her gaze. "It's okay, little one," said the millionaire, getting up and going to her. "These are friends. We're just talking." She nodded, unconvinced, clinging to the hem of the oversized t-shirt. "There are pancakes in the kitchen," he added, trying to smile. "Do you like pancakes?" The girl's face lit up, despite the distrust. "I've never had them. Are they good?" The three adult men in the room exchanged silent glances, each processing the meaning of that simple statement. A child who had never tasted pancakes. "They're the best thing in the world," guaranteed the millionaire, reaching out his hand to her. "Shall we try them together?" As they left the office, he gave his team a meaningful look. They understood the silent message: find a solution, no matter the cost. In the kitchen, as the girl tasted with wonder the sweet flavor of the first pancake of her life, the millionaire felt something break inside him. The walls he had built around his heart began to crack. He knew he was entering dangerous territory, not only legally, but emotionally. After years of running away from genuine connections, he was letting himself be vulnerable again. "Mister, this is magic," declared the girl, her mouth full of pancake and her smile smeared with syrup. "Thank you." And in that simple moment, the man who had everything but valued nothing learned the true meaning of gratitude. 3 days had passed, 3 days in which the millionaire had reorganized his entire life around the unexpected presence of the girl. Important meetings were moved to video conferences that he conducted from home. The financial decisions that normally consumed his day were delegated. For the first time in years, something more important than money occupied his thoughts. That morning, as they had breakfast, the girl looked out the panoramic window, watching the city wake up down below. "What are you looking at?" he asked, noticing her fixed gaze. "The park," she replied, pointing to the green spot in the middle of the buildings. "That's where I went when I was really hungry." The millionaire swallowed hard, thinking about how many times he had passed through that same park without really seeing the reality around him. "You won't have to do that anymore," he said, with more conviction than he felt he had the right to have. The legal situation remained complicated. His lawyer had located the girl's father, but the man had been missing for almost a week, probably on another one of his prolonged benders, according to neighbors. Social services had been discreetly informed, but without formal charges. Now she was in limbo, neither kidnapped nor officially in alternative care. "Mister," called the girl, interrupting his thoughts, "do you also get lonely like me?" The question, so direct and penetrating, caught the millionaire off guard. How could a 6-year-old see through him with such clarity? "I guess so," he replied honestly, but in a different way. She nodded as if she understood perfectly. "Daddy gets lonely too. That's why he drinks. He says it helps him forget." The millionaire tried to mask his discomfort. He wasn't used to talking about emotions, especially with a child. "What would you like to do today?" he asked, changing the subject. The girl hesitated, biting her lip. "Can I choose anything?" "Anything," he confirmed. "Can we go to the park? A real one with swings?" The request, so simple and childlike, contrasted drastically with the world of luxury in which he lived. When was the last time he had visited a public park or done anything simply for the pleasure of existing? "Sure," he replied, surprised by his own animation. "Let's go after lunch." The anticipation on the girl's face was like a gift, pure and genuine. In the last few days, he had sent for new clothes for her, toys, books. But nothing had provoked a smile as radiant as the promise of a simple trip to the park. After lunch, the millionaire dismissed the driver and decided to drive himself, something he hadn't done in months. The girl sat in the passenger seat, watching everything with wide-eyed wonder. The park was a green oasis in the grey city. Families spread out on the lawns, children ran and screamed, elderly couples walked hand in hand. It was a world that the millionaire had forgotten existed, a world of small, everyday joys, without a market price. "Can I go on the swings?" asked the girl, almost skipping with excitement. "Sure," he replied, letting himself be infected by her enthusiasm. While she ran to the playground, the millionaire sat on a bench watching. The girl seemed different here, freer, more like a child. The marks of her difficult life hadn't disappeared, but they seemed temporarily suspended, as if she had permission to simply exist in the present. "Your daughter is adorable," commented an elderly woman who sat next to him on the bench. "The shoe," millionaire hesitated. "She's not. Yes, she is special." Why hadn't he corrected the mistake? Because somewhere inside him, a seed had been planted. The idea that maybe, just maybe, he could be more than a lonely billionaire in an empty penthouse. While the girl played, his phone rang. It was the lawyer. "We found the father," said the voice on the other end of the line. "He's at the city hospital. Alcohol overdose with medication. It's not critical, but he's hospitalized." The millionaire felt a knot in his stomach. Did he ask about his daughter? There was an uncomfortable pause. Actually, when we mentioned the girl, he said something about, well, that she's just trouble and costs money. The anger rose like a wave. "Keep me informed about his condition and prepare the documents we discussed." He hung up without waiting for a response. On the other side of the playground, the girl waved to him from the top of the slide, her face lit with joy. "Look, mister, I'm flying." He waved back, feeling an emotion he hadn't experienced in years, a mixture of fierce protection and devastating tenderness. That night, returning home, the girl slept in the car, exhausted from playing so much. The millionaire drove in silence, his mind working on possibilities and plans. When they arrived, he carried her in his arms to the guest room she occupied, now decorated with pastel tones and a few strategically placed toys. "Mister," she murmured, half asleep as he covered her, "can I stay with you forever?" The question, so innocent and at the same time so profound, struck the millionaire like lightning. He adjusted the blanket, stalling for time while searching for an answer. How to explain the complexities of the adult world to a child who only wanted security? "We'll figure it out," he replied finally, stroking her hair lightly. "Rest now." When he closed the door to the room, he felt the weight of that veiled promise. He was a man who always kept his word in the business world. This promise, however, involved something much more valuable than money. A week later, the millionaire was in his office when his lawyer entered, carrying a thick file. The expression on his face indicated that something significant had been discovered. "We have news," he announced, placing the documents on the desk. "And it's, well, surprising." The millionaire gestured for him to continue, while he watched through the half-open door. The girl in the next room concentrated on a new puzzle. "We decided to investigate the family history further, looking for relatives who could assume legal guardianship of the child. The normal process would require that anyway." The millionaire nodded, trying to ignore the uncomfortable feeling that the idea of finding other relatives caused. In the last few days, he had grown accustomed to the little one's presence, to her curious questions, to her cautious but hopeful way of seeing the world. "And what did you find?" The lawyer adjusted his glasses, visibly uncomfortable. "The girl's mother wasn't who we thought she was. The name on the birth certificate is a woman named Elena Santos." The millionaire froze at the sound of that name. Elena? a ghost from his past that he had never managed to exorcise completely. "That's impossible," he murmured. "I've checked 3 times," continued the lawyer, opening the file and showing a copy of the certificate. "Elena Santos, deceased 4 years ago in a car accident. And here's the most surprising detail. In the maternal filiation field, it says Mariana Gomez." The whole world seemed to fall silent around the millionaire. Mariana was the name of his younger sister, with whom he had broken off relations almost 2 decades ago, after a bitter inheritance dispute. The last he had heard from her was that she had moved abroad. "Are you telling me that—" "Elena was your sister's daughter, your niece," confirmed the lawyer, "which makes this girl—" "My great-niece," completed the millionaire, his voice almost inaudible. The revelation fell like a bomb on his conscience. It wasn't just an unknown child that fate had placed in his path. It was blood of his blood, family. "How is this possible? How did I never know she existed?" The lawyer flipped through some more documents. "From what we've been able to gather, your sister had little contact with her daughter after Eleanor got involved with the girl's father. It seems there was disapproval of the relationship. Elena died young, and the girl stayed with the father, who apparently withheld any information about the maternal family." The millionaire stood up, unable to stay seated. Years of resentment and distance had created such a wide chasm that a child, his own family, was living in misery a few miles from him without him knowing of her existence. "This information changes everything," said the lawyer, observing the client's reaction. "As a direct relative, your request for guardianship would have legal precedence, especially considering the conditions in which the child was living." The millionaire walked to the window, his mind a storm of emotions. Behind the glass, the city continued its relentless routine, indifferent to the small personal revolution happening in that penthouse. "Should I tell her?" he asked, more to himself than to the lawyer. "That's a personal decision," replied the other man. "But I believe the truth, presented with care, is always the best way." At that moment, a childish laugh rang out in the next, a room. The millionaire turned to see the girl celebrating the completion of her puzzle. "I need some time," he told the lawyer. "Continue with the preparations for the guardianship petition." When the lawyer left, the millionaire remained still for a few minutes, processing the revelation. His own great niece, a piece of his family that he thought he had lost forever. "Mister, I finished," called the girl, proud of her achievement. He walked to the room, observing her with new eyes. How hadn't he noticed before? The shape of the eyes, certain gestures, the silent determination. They were family traits, echoes of people who had once meant everything to him before money and power became his only ambitions. "It's beautiful," he said, sitting down next to her on the rug. "Little one, can I tell you a story?" She nodded, looking at him with curiosity. "Once upon a time there was a man who had a sister he liked very much," he began, choosing his words carefully. "But they fought over something silly, something that today seems unimportant, and they went so long without talking to each other that they forgot what it was like to like each other." The girl listened attentively, as if she sensed that this wasn't just any story. The sister had a daughter, and that daughter grew up and also had a daughter, a special girl with big eyes and a brave heart. But the man in the story didn't know that this girl existed. He was too busy counting money to realize that he had a family. "Like you," observed the girl, with the disconcerting perspicacity of children. "Yes," he admitted, feeling his eyes water. "Like me. And do you know what the most amazing part of this story is?" She shook her head, totally absorbed. The girl found her way to him. Of all the people in the city, she asked him for help. The child frowned, processing the information. "Mister, is this story real?" The millionaire took a deep breath, feeling the weight of decades of estrangement, of missed opportunities, of unspoken words. Yes, little one, it's our story. You're not just a girl I met in the park. You're my family, my great niece. The child's eyes widened, trying to understand the meaning of those words. Family? Like a grandpa? Like a great uncle, he corrected her gently. The brother of the grandma you never knew. The girl was silent for a moment, absorbing the information, with a seriousness that seemed disproportionate for her age. Then, as if she had reached a conclusion after deep reflection, she took a step forward and wrapped her small arms around the millionaire's neck. Then we don't have to be afraid anymore, she whispered in his ear. You won't send me away because we're real family. The millionaire, the man who rarely showed emotions, felt the tears streaming freely down his face. He returned the hug carefully, as if afraid to break that small miracle in his arms. No, he promised, his voice choked. I won't send you away. At that moment, the walls he had built around his heart collapsed completely. The news spread like wildfire. Somehow, the story leaked to the press. The powerful millionaire who had discovered a great niece living in misery. The abused child who'd been revealed to be the heiress of one of the most influential families in the country. What should have been a discreet guardianship petition quickly became a media circus. Reporters camped at the entrance of the building, experts debated the case on TV shows. The girl, protected inside the penthouse, remained oblivious to the storm brewing outside. This is insane, vented the millionaire, watching the crowd of journalists on the sidewalk through the security cameras. How did this leak? His lawyer, who hadn't left the building for 3 days, shook his head. The timing is suspicious. Right after we started the formal guardianship process. The girl's father, already recovered from hospitalization, had hired a sensationalist lawyer who seemed more interested in the cameras than in the well-being of the child. The accusations were absurd. That the millionaire had bought the girl, that he was using the child to clean up his public image, that the real father was being unfairly separated from his beloved daughter. He didn't even ask about her during the week he was hospitalized, said the millionaire, incredulous at the hypocrisy, but the worst was yet to come. That morning, the doorbell rang. It was another lawyer, representing a couple who presented themselves as second cousins on the maternal side of the girl. People who had never spoken up when she was starving, but who now, suddenly, were deeply concerned about the well-being of the dear niece. It's absurd, protested the millionaire after the unwanted visitor left. No one ever cared about her. Now that they know she's linked to my fortune, relatives are appearing from all sides. The formal request from the supposed relatives alleged that the millionaire, with his history of coldness in business and lack of experience with children, would not be suitable to raise the girl, that the child would be better off in a traditional family environment with the couple who had other children her age. The judge assigned to the case ordered a preliminary hearing with psychological evaluation of the girl. The idea of exposing the child to yet another trauma made the millionaire feel nauseous. They can't do this to her, he protested in vain. She just found stability. But the law would run its course. The hearing was scheduled for 3 days from then. Meanwhile, the girl remained under the temporary guardianship of the millionaire. That night, while the little one was already asleep, the millionaire received an unexpected call. It was the girl's father. I know what you're thinking, said the slurred voice, clearly altered by alcohol. That I'm a monster who doesn't deserve to be a father. Maybe you're right. I couldn't get over her death. Elena's. The millionaire felt a chill upon hearing the name of the niece he never knew. If you really care about your daughter, let her have a chance at a better life, he replied coldly. A better life? The man laughed bitterly. With you, the big millionaire, the man who destroyed my career, you destroyed your own career when you decided to steal from the company. I only took what I thought was fair for my work, the man shouted. "Do you know how much this process is worth now? That couple's lawyers offered me a fortune to testify against you, to say that you kidnapped her, that you're blackmailing me." The millionaire squeezed the phone tightly. "Would you sell your own daughter?" There was a long silence. "I can't offer her what you can," said the father finally, his voice choked. "I never could." "Then do the right thing," replied the millionaire, "for once." The call ended abruptly, leaving the millionaire with a mixture of anger and pity. How could a man fall so low? But hadn't he himself ignored the existence of family members for decades, while accumulating riches that he could never spend in a lifetime? The next morning, his lawyer arrived with disconcerting news. "The father has officially relinquished custody," he announced, showing the documents. "And that's not all. He reported the scheme of the supposed relatives. They offered money in exchange for false testimony against you." The millionaire felt a momentary relief. "Will that settle the matter?" The lawyer shook his head. "Not entirely. The couple still maintains the request for guardianship, claiming blood ties. And there's another problem. The father's sister, who lives in another state, has also filed a request. There are many people suddenly interested in the girl." "In her inheritance, you mean?" corrected the millionaire bitterly. At that instant, the girl entered the office, dragging a new teddy bear almost her size. "Mister, can we have ice cream? For lunch?" The contrast between the innocence of that request and the sordidness of the dispute that was happening around her broke the millionaire's heart. "Of course, little one," he replied, forcing a smile. "Today is a special day." When she left, skipping happily, the millionaire turned to his lawyer, a steely determination in his gaze. "Do whatever it takes. Use all the resources, hire the best experts. She won't suffer anymore." The lawyer nodded, recognizing in the client a protective ferocity he had never seen before. "One last detail," he added. "The press found out about the hearing. It's going to be a circus." The millionaire thought for a moment, then made a decision that surprised even himself. "Schedule a press conference this afternoon." "Are you sure?" questioned the lawyer, surprised. "You've always avoided personal publicity." "Yes, it's time for the world to know the real story. I won't let the narrative be controlled by those who only want to exploit a child." That afternoon, for the first time in his career, the reclusive millionaire faced the cameras not to talk about business or investments, but to defend something infinitely more valuable: a child's right to safety and love. The day of the hearing arrived, bringing with it a palpable tension. The girl, dressed in a simple but elegant dress, held the millionaire's hand firmly as they entered the courthouse through the back entrance, avoiding the reporters gathered in front of the building. "It's okay, little one," he assured her, noticing her nervousness. "You just need to tell the truth when they ask you something." She nodded, her face too serious for a child her age. In recent days, despite the millionaire's efforts to protect her, she had realized that something important was happening, something related to her future. The courtroom was smaller and more welcoming than the traditional ones, specially adapted for cases involving children. Still, there was a solemnity in the air that made the girl squeeze her great-uncle's hand even tighter. The millionaire spotted the couple, claiming custody, well-dressed, rehearsed smiles, clearly uncomfortable in the environment. On the other side, the paternal aunt, a middle-aged woman with a stern expression he had never seen before. And, surprisingly, the father, sober and crestfallen, sitting alone in a corner. When the judge entered, everyone stood up. She was a woman of about 50, with piercing eyes that seemed to see beyond appearances. "We are not here for a formal trial," she began, after the initial introductions. "This is a preliminary hearing to determine the best interest of the child. I want to make it clear from the outset, the well-being of the girl is the only priority of this court. Her gaze swept the room, lingering on each adult present as if assessing their true intentions. Before hearing from the parties, I would like to speak alone with the child. But the millionaire felt a pang in his chest when the girl was gently led by a social worker to an adjacent room. She looked back only once, her eyes seeking reassurance. "It's going to be okay," he mouthed silently, trying to convey a confidence he didn't fully feel. As they waited, the tension in the room was thick enough to be cut with a knife. The millionaire kept his eyes fixed on the door through which the girl had left, ignoring the gazes of the other adults present. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the judge returned, followed by the girl, who immediately ran to the millionaire's side. He noticed that she seemed lighter, almost relieved. "I have listened carefully to what the child has to say," announced the judge, sitting down. "Now I would like to hear briefly from each of the interested parties." The couple's lawyer was the first, presenting arguments about traditional family environment and experience with children. The paternal aunt, spoke about blood ties and family values. Both carefully avoided mentioning any financial interest, although that hung implicit in every word. When it was his turn, the girl's father surprised everyone. "I'm not a good father," he declared simply, his voice hoarse. "I never was. After Elena died, I got lost. I drank to forget and ended up forgetting what really mattered. My daughter deserves more than I can ever give her." An astonished silence followed his words. The man then looked directly at the millionaire. "I've hated you for years. I blamed you for everything that went wrong in my life. But the truth is that I made my own choices, and my daughter paid for them. If there's anyone here who really cares about her, and not about the money or the status, it's you." The emotional statement caused a stir in the room. The judge maintained a neutral expression, but her eyes revealed that she was carefully evaluating every word, every reaction. Finally, it was the millionaire's turn to speak. He rose slowly, feeling the weight of that moment. "Your Honor, I'm not here as a businessman or as someone with influence. I am here as a man who has made many mistakes in his life. I dedicated decades to building a fortune while neglecting what really matters: family, connections, love." He paused, looking at the girl beside him. "I didn't know my niece Elena in life. I wasn't there when she needed me, and that will be one of the biggest regrets I will carry until the end of my days. But I have a second chance now, a chance to make a difference in the life of this child who by some miracle crossed my path." His voice faltered slightly, something that never happened in his flawless corporate presentations. "I can't change the past. I can't bring back the lost years, but I can guarantee that this girl will never again feel hunger, fear, or abandonment. Not because I'm rich, but because I finally understood what it means to be family." When he finished speaking, there were tears not only in his eyes, but also in the eyes of several present in the room, including, surprisingly, the stern judge. "Thank you all," she said, composing herself. "I will make my decision after considering all the testimonies and reports from social workers. Until then, temporary guardianship remains with the maternal great-uncle." As they left the room, the girl pulled on the sleeve of the millionaire's coat. "What did you tell the judge?" he asked her, curious. She smiled, a genuine smile that lit up her whole face. "I told her about the pancakes, the park, and how you taught me to read. And I said that I haven't had nightmares since I've been with you." The millionaire felt his heart flood with an emotion for which he had no name, something greater than gratitude, deeper than affection. "I also said that you look sad sometimes when you think I'm not watching," she continued, with the disconcerting perspicacity of children, "but that you're learning to smile more." He swallowed hard, unable to respond. In his world of billion-dollar contracts and relentless negotiations, he never imagined that it would be the simple observation of a child that would disarm him completely. When they reached the car, they were surprised by the girl's father, who was waiting for them at a respectful distance. "Can I talk to her for a minute?" he asked, visibly nervous. The millionaire hesitated, then nodded, keeping close. The man knelt to get to his daughter's height. "Little one, I know I wasn't the father you deserved. I'm trying to get better. One day, when I'm ready, I'd like to see you again, if you want." The girl looked at him for a long moment, then looked at the millionaire, as if asking for guidance. He just nodded slightly, leaving the decision in her hands. "Okay," she replied finally, "but only if you're not mad." The man nodded with tears in his eyes. "Never again, I promise." As the car drove away, the girl waved shyly out the window to her father. The millionaire watched in the rearview mirror the solitary figure that remained behind, a broken man who maybe, just maybe, had found a reason to rebuild his life. "He's sad," observed the girl. "Yes," agreed the millionaire. "Sometimes people need to feel sadness to find their way back." "Like you found," she said, not as a question, but as a statement. He smiled, realizing the profound truth in those simple words. In fact, he had found his way back, not to who he was before, but to who he should have always been. 2 weeks had passed since the hearing. Life in the penthouse had found an almost normal rhythm, or a new version of normality. The girl had begun to attend a private school nearby, where she was gradually adapting, overcoming her initial shyness with the help of understanding teachers. The millionaire had reorganized his professional life in a way that surprised his associates. For the first time, he delegated significant responsibilities, refused unnecessary trips, and the most shocking, he was home every night at 6 o'clock for dinner. "I never thought I would live to see this," commented his CFO after he refused a business trip to Shanghai because it would coincide with the girls' school presentation. That Wednesday morning, as they were having breakfast, the phone rang. It was the lawyer, his voice tense. "The judge has made her decision. She wants to see us this afternoon." The millionaire felt his stomach sink. Despite all the favorable reports, all the evidence that the girl was thriving under his care, there was still that terrible possibility that justice would decide that a child would be better off with a traditional family. "Do I need to leave school early today?" asked the girl, perceptive as always. "Yes, little one, we have an important meeting," she nodded, serious, "with the judge, about who will take care of me forever." The millionaire sometimes forgot how much she understood, despite her young age. Perhaps it was a result of her difficult life, children who grow up too fast out of necessity. Yes, that's right. "What if she says I have to go with those people?" asked the girl, verbalizing the fear that haunted both of them. The millionaire hesitated. He wanted to promise that it would never happen, that he would fight until the end. But he also knew that he shouldn't make promises he might not be able to keep. "Let's wait to hear what she has to say," he replied, avoiding the direct question. "But know one thing. No matter what happens, you will always have a place here. This will always be your home." She studied him with those deep eyes that seemed to see his soul. "You've changed," she observed simply. "How so?" "Before, you seemed scared. Now you don't anymore." The comment caught him by surprise. Had he been scared before? Of what? As he reflected, he realized that it was true. He had spent his life fearing failure, fearing the judgment of others, fearing above all getting too attached, because getting attached meant vulnerability, and vulnerability meant potential pain. "I think you're right," he admitted. "You taught me to be brave." The girl smiled, a smile that lit up her whole face and warmed the millionaire's heart. In the afternoon, they returned to the courthouse. The room was less crowded this time. Only the millionaire and the girl, his lawyer, and surprisingly, the couple who were claiming custody with their own legal representation. The paternal aunt had dropped the case the week before for unspecified reasons. The judge entered and everyone stood up. She carried a thin file in her hands and a serene, almost gentle expression, something unusual for the standards of judicial coldness. "Good afternoon, everyone," she began after the formal greetings. "This is a decision hearing in the case of the minor's guardianship. I have carefully analyzed all the testimonies, reports from social workers, psychological evaluations, and other relevant documents." She paused, her gaze sweeping the room before landing on the girl. Cases like this are always complex because they involve not only legal aspects, but mainly human ones. Our legislation prioritizes the best interest of the child above any other. Factors. The millionaire felt the girl's small hand reach for his under the table. He held it firmly, feeling his own heart race. The reports from social workers are unanimous in pointing out the significant improvement in the child's physical and emotional well-being since she started living with her great-uncle. The psychological evaluation indicates that there is already a solid emotional bond between them, and that a separation at this moment could cause a setback in the minor's emotional development. The judge directed her gaze to the couple on the other side. Although the petitioners present adequate material and family conditions, it was not possible to identify any prior emotional bond with the child, nor a demonstration of interest in her well-being before the beginning of this process. The couple exchanged nervous glances, realizing the direction the decision was taking. "Considering all these factors," continued the judge, "and especially the superior interest of the child in having emotional stability and continuity of significant emotional bonds, this court decides to grant definitive guardianship to the petitioner, her maternal great-uncle." The millionaire closed his eyes for a moment, feeling a wave of relief so intense that it almost left him breathless. Beside him, the girl remained still, as if she hadn't fully understood the meaning of those words. "However," added the judge, "I also determine that a regimen of supervised visits with the biological father be maintained according to the agreement already established between the parties, aiming at a possible gradual rapprochement, provided that it is beneficial for the minor." She then addressed the girl directly. "Do you understand what this means, little one?" The child looked at the millionaire, then back at the judge, and nodded slowly. "It means I can stay with my mister forever." "That's right," confirmed the judge with a soft smile. "Your mister will be your legal guardian from now on. He will take care of you, ensure that you have everything you need, and make the important decisions for your well-being until you are big enough to make them yourself." The girl processed the information for a moment, then asked a question that took everyone by surprise. "And if he gets sick or too old, who will take care of me?" The judge couldn't contain a smile at the child's practical concern. "Your mister will designate someone trustworthy for that responsibility if necessary. But don't worry about that now. He seems quite healthy to me." Satisfied with the answer, the girl finally smiled, a genuine smile that lit up her entire face. Then, to everyone's surprise, she rose from her chair and hugged the millionaire without caring about the formality of the environment. "Now we're really family," she whispered. The man, who rarely showed emotions in public, couldn't hold back the tears that streamed freely down his face as he embraced that small being who had transformed his life. On the other side of the room, the claiming couple quietly withdrew, their plans for access to the millionaire's fortune frustrated by the judicial decision. They didn't know, no one besides the millionaire and his lawyer knew, that even before the hearing he had already changed his will, ensuring that the girl would be his main heir, regardless of the outcome of the guardianship process. The Official documents will be issued in the coming days, concluded the judge, observing the scene with evident approval. This hearing is adjourned. As they left the courthouse through the back door, again avoiding the press, the girls seemed to float with happiness. In the car on the way home, now officially both of their home, she looked out the window, observing the city with new eyes. "Mister," she called thoughtfully, "can we go to that park where we met?" The request surprised him, but he nodded, instructing the driver to change the route. The park was almost empty at that time of day, just a few elderly people on the benches and pigeons pecking crumbs on the ground. The two walked to the exact spot where they had met weeks ago. He, a cold and distant man, passing in a hurry. She, a desperate child, gathering courage to ask for help. "Why did you want to come here?" he asked, genuinely curious. The girl looked around as if absorbing every detail of the place, then smiled. "To remember. I always want to remember that. Life can change in a minute, even when everything seems really bad." The millionaire knelt to get to her height, touched by the depth of that observation. "You are very wise for someone so small." She shrugged, with that peculiar mix of innocence and maturity. "I think I learned by watching people. When you can't talk much, you learn to watch a lot." He nodded, understanding. In his previous life, always so busy talking, ordering, negotiating, he rarely stopped to really observe the people, the life, the small everyday miracles. "Do you know what else I want to do now?" she asked, sudden animation in her voice. "What? Go to the zoo. I've never been to a real zoo." The millionaire laughed, feeling a lightness he hadn't experienced since childhood. "Then let's go to the zoo." As they walked back to the car, she held his hand with complete confidence, without the hesitation of the first days. And he realized that, in that simple moment, he had found something that all his money could never buy: a purpose, a genuine connection, a reason to be a better person every day. A year had passed. The penthouse, once a sterile and meticulously organized environment, had transformed. Now, colorful drawings adorned the refrigerator. Framed photographs occupied previously empty spaces on the walls. Children's books shared. Space with financial reports on the shelves. And most importantly, laughter echoed through the rooms that had previously known only silence. The millionaire observed the city from the height of his private terrace, a cup of coffee in his hand and a peaceful smile on his face. It was Saturday morning, and the girl was still asleep. A light and peaceful sleep, so different from the nightmares that tormented her in the early months. "Sir!" called the housekeeper, approaching discreetly. "The driver is ready whenever you are." He nodded, grateful. This was a special date, the girl's birthday. And he had a surprise planned for weeks. When the little one finally woke up, she found her favorite breakfast waiting: pancakes with honey and strawberries, a luxury that was now a weekend tradition for both of them. "Good morning, little one. Happy birthday," he greeted, observing with satisfaction how she had gained weight, color in her cheeks, and mainly an aura of security that hadn't existed before. "Thank you, mister," she replied with a smile that still disarmed him completely. "I have a surprise for you today." Her eyes sparkled with expectation. Although she now lived surrounded by material comfort, with toys, clothes, and everything a child could desire, she had never become spoiled or demanding. She still valued every little gesture, every gift, every shared moment, with a gratitude that constantly reminded the millionaire of what really mattered in life. "What surprise?" she asked, curious. "First, have your breakfast. Then we'll find out." She ate quickly, eager for the promised adventure. When she finished, he led her to the car that was waiting for them. "Where are we going?" she insisted, watching through the window as the vehicle left downtown. "To a special place. Remember when you told me that you had never been to the countryside? That you wanted to see a sky full of stars?" Her eyes widened. "Are we going to see stars?" "Not only that," he replied, feeling an almost childlike anticipation at her reaction. "We are going to our new country house, a place where we can spend the weekends, away from the city, with a huge garden for you to play, a lake to swim in the summer, and the most starry sky you've ever seen." Her expression was of pure astonishment. "A house just for the weekends?" He smiled, realizing how there was still a dissonance between their realities. For him, a second home was something common. For her, who had grown up without being sure if she would have a roof over her head each night, the idea was almost incomprehensible. Yes, and the best part, you can help decorate it the way you want. The 2-hour drive was filled with lively conversation, while the urban landscape gradually gave way to green fields and quieter roads. When they finally arrived, the girl was silent, absorbing the view of the property. It wasn't an ostentatious mansion, as one might expect from someone with his fortune. It was a traditional country house, cozy and modest in proportions, but surrounded by flowering gardens and open fields. A large oak tree dominated the yard, and from it hung a simple swing made of rope and wood. "It's the most beautiful house I've ever seen," she declared with absolute sincerity. But the main surprise awaited inside. When they opened the door, they were greeted by a small crowd. The girl's father, now sober for 9 months and working in a recovery program. Some schoolmates she had befriended, teachers, and even the judge who had granted definitive custody, all gathered to celebrate not only her birthday but the extraordinary journey they had traveled that year. "Surprise!" they exclaimed in unison. The girl was paralyzed for a moment, overwhelmed by emotion. Then, tears of joy began to stream down her face as she looked at the millionaire with astonishment. "You did all this for me?" He knelt to get to her eye level. "Little one, you deserve this and much more. You have transformed my life in ways that I never imagined possible." The party was simple and joyful, games in the garden, a cake decorated with her favorite character, gifts that were modest but chosen with care. And to the millionaire's surprise, he found himself genuinely involved, participating in the games, talking to the other parents, even laughing openly, behaviors that would have been unthinkable a year before. In the late afternoon, as the guests began to say goodbye, the girl's father approached the millionaire timidly. The two men, once declared enemies, had found a delicate balance in recent months. "Thank you," said the father with visible difficulty, "not just for taking care of her, but for giving me a chance to be a part of her life, even after everything." The millionaire nodded, recognizing how much that admission must have cost the other man. "She needs all of us, in different ways, indifferent." Later, when everyone had left and the house was quiet again, the millionaire sat with the girl on the back porch, watching the sky gradually fill with stars as the sun set. "It was the best birthday in the world," she declared, nestling against him with the absolute confidence that only a loved child possesses. "The first of many," he promised. They were silent for a few minutes, absorbing the peace of the moment. Then the girl asked a question that caught him by surprise. "Mister, are you still sad sometimes?" He reflected before answering, realizing that she deserved his honesty. "Sometimes," he admitted, "everyone gets sad from time to time. But now, when I get sad, I'm not alone anymore, and that makes all the difference." She nodded, satisfied with the answer. "Me too. Before I thought sadness was never going to leave. Now I know that it comes and goes, but I don't need to be afraid of it." The millionaire felt a pang in his chest at that adult wisdom in such a small child. How many lessons had she already taught him without even realizing it? "Do you know what I like most about you?" she asked, looking at him with those huge eyes that seemed to see his soul. "What?" "That you don't pretend. Many adults pretend that everything is okay when it's not, or that they know all the answers. You don't do that. He smiled, touched by the observation. I'm learning that we don't need to have all the answers. We just need to be willing to look for them together. When the first really bright star appeared, in the sky, the girl pointed, excited. Look, we can make a wish. And what are you going to wish for? He asked, curious. She thought for a moment, then smiled with that unique mix of innocence and wisdom. Nothing, she answered simply. I already have everything I need. The millionaire hugged her tighter, feeling a gratitude so profound that it couldn't be contained in words. A year ago, he had everything that money could buy, and yet nothing that really mattered. Now, thanks to an unlikely encounter in a park, he had discovered the true meaning of wealth. As the stars multiplied in the sky above them, the man who had once been defined only by his material fortune gave silent thanks for the incomparable treasure he had found, not in bank accounts or investments, but in the heart of a child who had taught him to love again. If this story touched you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to receive new stories every day. What would you do in the millionaire's place? Comment below and share this story with someone special.